Radio Späthaus. Berlin News in English.
It's Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. This is Radio Späthof, Berlin's news podcast, recording live at Another Country Bookstore in front of this wonderful live audience. Yes, indeed. I'm Daniel Stern.
I'm Izzy Chuxey.
And joining us today as a special guest host is comedian, writer, and improviser Antonia Bär, usually found on stage at the wonderful Comedy Cafe Berlin in Neukölln.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is entirely ours and also the listeners at
I'm going to be
home.
obnoxious straight away. It's Antonia Bär, just like the animal, the bear.
What did I say?
Bar.
Yes. That's how it's pronounced in German?
So you're in the right city.
I am, yeah.
Berlin's
It's
got-
my city,
right.
basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, let's
like
go with that, yeah.
bear as in like
The Berlin one.
Berlin.
Yeah.
No, like, as in, like, panda bear.
Have you? Not to completely digress from our actual topic, but have you heard there's a thing on the internet that panda bears are fake?
No.
This is a phenomenon. Like
a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, it's a conspiracy theory that I came across that I only came across it as someone debunking it, which is weird to find out about it that way. Also, I didn't need it debunked. But apparently there are kids on TikTok who are saying, by kids, I mean anyone under the age of 50. That way I'm included as one of the kids. Saying
Not
that
for long.
there's no such thing as panda bears. But according to this YouTuber, there are, although they may have been bred. I don't know. He wanted to make it tasty. There's nothing tasty there. I think that we should probably move on. But how have you guys been doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. I'm going to let Antonia go first because I always talk about the weather and it makes me so English. So, Antonia, you go first.
I was so about to launch into stuff about the weather.
Right.
Literally, as soon as Dan was like, "How are you?" I was like, I rode my bike in short sleeves today, and that was awesome. That's what my mood is influenced by these days.
You know, I saw several people smiling. Like, and they looked
scary.
They also look German. So I was like, this is wild.
That's wrong.
I haven't seen this in about 6 months. So that was lovely. I've had a lovely day as a result of that.
Yeah, I had that moment where you're coming out of the U-Bahn at Hermannplatz and you see that blue sign, the Hermannplatz U-Bahn sign, like, and behind it is a blue sky. It's this blue on blue thing where I'm like, I take a picture once a year of that image, and then I'm like, great, another one of those photos. I'm not sure where to go with it, but I had that moment of like, I can see clearly now the sky is not oppressing my emotional state.
But I guess see a collage of those, just a collage of the same photos through the same photo but through the years.
Yeah, right. It's just slowly getting dirtier. The sky and the sign.
We've also got to mention, I mean, this has been a month of strikes, right? So has anyone felt really affected by the strikes in the last month?
I mean,
the rubbish ones and
No, I did. I had one thought today about the rubbish strikes, and I've been seeing a lot of graffiti on trash on the sidewalks, and I'm really enjoying that as a statement, especially with like political graffiti, where it's sort of like it's of the moment. And so I felt maybe this is like the podcaster in me looking at street art as the same sort of ephemeral medium, but I was like, oh, what a great way to put statements that are, important right now, and then they can move away. So also it made the like piles of discarded furniture look cooler. Mm-hmm. So I guess all I'm saying is more graffiti on top of trash is my plan for urban redevelopment in Berlin.
If you have to have the trash in the street, at least like make some kind of art with it, I suppose.
Yes. I mean, I like to live in a place where I can't tell if something's performance art or not. That's what I always want to not know.
I maintain it's rent control,
Oh, okay. Yes. This is your your reverse broken windows theory.
There was was a house in Neukölln somewhere that literally had a graffiti that just said, no graffiti means high rent.
To be sure. You know, I want to live in a place where, you know, the middle class parents or the very high class parents, the really rich people from the Schwabia or the Munich, and they come here with their kids and they have lunch in a local cafe. They're like, no, you're not staying here. I'm not paying your rent if you live in Neukölln. You have to go to the decent place like Prenzlauer Berg, you know. And then the kids are like, oh, okay,
I mean,
fine.
I'm
Bye-bye.
I don't want to play devil's advocate here, but we've already tried that system of having Berlin.
No, we
be
need more
dirty,
than that. I
and
realize we need
okay.
more than that. Absolutely.
Okay, gun violence maybe?
Enteignen, auf jeden Fall.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But, you know, until we get that, we need all the measures we can have. So, like, you know, dog poo on the floor, I'm fine. Graffiti everywhere, I'm fine, you know? Fine with all of that.
All right. I mean, I was with you up to the dog poo, but that's like,
Okay, well.
I feel like you could also, we could just go to the prank shop and buy like hundreds of plastic ones.
I am
No,
quite alone in
that's-
this, though, you know.
Just environmentally, that sounds like a nightmare.
You're right. We'd have to
Slippery
upcycle it out
as
of the
well.
cardboard
Yes.
that's like currently covered in graffiti.
Exactly.
Okay, upcycled fake dog poo. I feel like there's maybe more pressing issues in the world than this, but you know, at least
I
this
mean, who can
institution's
say?
viable. In terms of the strikes, I do want to cover them more. I think we sort of gotten to the point where a lot of, and we'll do this in an upcoming episode. I think a lot of our listeners are like reflexively pro-union and are like, yeah, right on, until like the fourth time that they're in 2 weeks that they're sort of inconvenienced, and then it's sort of like, well, wait, what are we fighting for? And it's like wildly unfair wages and working conditions, but maybe we'll go into that in a future episode.
Yeah, it's also like 3 years in, 2 and a bit years into a CDU mayor. So, I mean, this is kind of what happens when you get CDU in power. Is like within a couple of years, you got massive amounts of strikes and everyone's really pissed off with the people who are striking. But then it's like, don't vote for the CDU guys, and then you won't get so many strikes. You know? Sometimes. If they're paid by the Berlin city.
Yeah.
Or if that has any effect on them. Yeah.
Very good. One other quick update from last episode for those of you that were interested in the vinyl release of How to Fuck Up an Airport.
I'm interested.
Yes, and you may have logged into our Kickstarter. Thank you. That we delayed the launch of that in order to secure all of the details to it. So we'll be launching that today or 2 days ago if you're listening to this now, and just 100 of those are going to be available. And basically I just want one, and unless I can talk 99 other people into buying one, it won't happen. So check that out. Here, for those people here in the audience, is a mock-up of what it would look like, in case you couldn't picture a record with our cover on it. So that seems like a necessary thing. All right.
So let's start the show with some short news. Starting us off, the Nazis, great words to start, have been marching lots in the last month. On the 22nd of March, a rabble of about 850 neo-Nazis attempted to march through the streets of Friedrichshain. They were met by thousands of counter-protesters who blocked their way into Friedrichshain from Ostkreuz station. The anti-fascists stood their ground for 4 hours until the far-right march organizer eventually called it off and the Nazis dispersed.
Sure.
Well done, Friedrichshain. They got the memo. The police were out in full force, deploying 1,500 officers. Police reported about 100 arrests and pepper spraying several counter-protesters who attempted to cross a barrier. The police also preventatively detained 3 people who intended to march with the neo-Nazis on the basis of previous arrests for unconstitutional displays of giving the Hitler salute. While the prevention of the march goes down as a win for anti-fascism, the Nazi march is the third of its kind in recent months. The first, in December, drew around 60 participants, which grew to 150 in February and then 850 in March. The following weekend saw around 200 Nazis marching through Hellersdorf and around 300 counter-protesters, shouting them down on the other side of the police cordon. This demonstration was organized by Der Dritte Weg, the Third Way, an extremist right-wing group with Fred Perry-influenced aesthetics similar to America's Proud Boys.
Yeah, or, good old-fashioned skinheads. So while the Berlin police explained that the 1,500 officers in place to protect the Nazis by saying, well, we never protect the content of the assembly, but only the reason for the assembly itself, the freedom of assembly, The state of Berlin is simultaneously attempting to deport 3 EU citizens and 1 United States citizen for participating in demonstrations against Israel's war on Gaza. While the crackdown on speech in support of Palestinians or critical of Israel has been an ongoing policy of German institutions, these deportations have triggered swift international rebuke. None of the 4 have been convicted of a crime. Authorities have accused them of various, acts such as disturbing the peace, obstructing arrest, menacing with potentially dangerous objects, as well as supporting Hamas, chanting anti-Israel slogans, blockading roads, calling a police officer fascist, and other actions, potentially including last year's takeover of a Humboldt University building. The reaction to this in Berlin and beyond has been, in my opinion, fairly swift and relatively broad. I think there's a certain level of like business as usual response when cops crack down on protesters who aren't white. But there's also, the defunding of outspoken artists. We're just sort of used to that and it's expected. So this, for whatever reason, just has triggered a lot of response in the international press and in opinions. And even this sort of deporting people for expressing these political opinions has already been something that's been going on. It's just been happening to people with Middle Eastern passports and Arab backgrounds. But, an Irish university student, it's a real big deal. Whatever. That being said, I'm traveling over the coming school break, and I want to clearly state my complete faith in the German state, the United States government, and truly all governments everywhere, with the exception of anything that would conflict with my absolute belief in the U.S. and Germany. In the question, really, it's just, I just want to make clear, I have an unquestioning patriotism to the United States, and a polite obedience to the laws and general vibe of Deutschland. And I just also just say that, honestly, I think capitalism gets a bad rap. And I feel like it's cool and hip to kind of criticize it, but also, guys, try shopping. It's awesome. What else is in the news?
Beyond shopping is awesome. Remember that petition you signed in the summer of 2021 about no cars in the city center of Berlin?
I do.
Do you remember it? I remember it.
Yeah, we all remember it. We all signed it. And now there's an update. Autofrei Berlin, the Berlin Citizens for a Car-Free City, is pushing for a significant reduction in car traffic within the Berlin S-Bahn ring to create more space for pedestrians, cyclists, and public transport. After collecting over 50,000 signatures in 2021, the initiative's draft law is now under review by the Berlin Constitutional Court. If approved, a second round of signature collection will begin in summer 2025, aiming for 170,000 signatures to bring the law to a public vote. The initiative argues that reducing car traffic will lead to safer, quieter, and more open neighborhoods. Because apparently that needs to be argued for.
It still won't mean anything, and this will never go through. Sad to say, but
I was riding my bike on the Friedrichstrasse today, and I nearly got run over 3 times, and I was super upset about it. Just nearly getting run over, yes, but also that memory of what? Did we have 2 years? Did we have 2 years of no cars on Friedrichstrasse? Or was it 1.5? I remember. It was it was a fair amount of time.
It was lovely, it's just something we can cling to as a memory. I think that the current government's very, very much in favor of cars. We recently saw them implement these no knife zones. I don't know if we didn't cover this because it sort of happened in between episodes, but around Gorli, Kati, and one other Kreuzberg Square, you're no longer allowed to carry knives or guns or other sort of. It's an anti-weapons law, but mainly about knives.
Can you carry knives and guns?
This is an area where the cops can just sort of stop you if they think you might have a knife. You're allowed to carry a knife if you're just coming from the knife store. This is all detailed in various conversations.
So if you have a receipt for the knife,
or if you use a knife or a box cutter for work. Like if you're a chef, if you have a good reason
How do you prove that?
to have a knife, they go into that. It basically it's a vibe based.
You probably have to have a shine,
Yeah.
There's probably some kind of like certificate that you carry on
Like
you
a
in your
knife
pocket.
allowance.
Exactly.
yeah.
License to carry a knife.
This note, there was a bunch more no knife. There was 9 or 12 of them added, and they've been temporarily added also in like vetting for a couple of weeks, in around certain stations where there was too many. Stabbings are bad. I'm not pro stabbing.
How is this related to cars?
Yeah, I'm getting to that. So you can have your knife confiscated. You can also have a fine of up to 10,000 euros. But one state senator, one SPD senator suggested that we also take away people's driver's licenses if caught with a knife in the no knife zone. As like, I just love the fact that her ultimate punishment, in her view, was like not being able to drive, and that's like those are the people who are in charge of legislating like cars in this city. So
Seems
like,
unconnected.
Can you just take away someone's driver's license for like non-car related offenses?
Well, not yet, but she was like, if we really want people to not carry knives in the no knife zone, we should threaten to take away their driver's licenses, because in her view, the driver's license is the ultimate thing to interact with the world with.
But it's also, I don't know, there's something about that feels weirdly like parental to me. It's like look, we're going to take your driver's license until you've learned not to carry a knife in girly.
Yeah, it's yeah. You are grounded, young man or woman. The thing is like no one is really in favor of these no knife zones. I mean, in the first 2 weeks, I think there was like in Gurley, or in the first week, there was like 127 people stopped to check for knives, and they found 7 knives, and they had just the cops were just like the police union wasn't in favor of this like harass whoever you want policy. So like it's really not working if they're just giving carte blanche to harass people.
Well, also, who they're going to stop
Well, yeah, yes.
disproportionately.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. And so if they're like, we don't want the power to do that, it's a really bad policy. That's my point. If they're just like, if you think someone might have,
if the police are showing restraint, it's probably not great.
Yeah. So at any rate, no knife zones are a fun topic that relates to cars totally.
Meanwhile, in West Berlin, a long-known crack in an elevator section of the A100 unexpectedly enlarged, causing the closure of the motorway in an area near the ICC. This was followed by the suspension of traffic on S-Bahn lines S41, S42 and S46, running underneath, and no train service to stations Messe Nord and Westkreuz. On Wednesday, Autobahn GmbH that said it would demolish the dilapidated section in April, and the federal government has pledged to chip in 150 million for the construction of a replacement at some point in time.
Yeah. Sometimes cracks just grow unexpectedly. I should also
unexpectedly enlarged.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you say it out loud, I will also note, though, there was much talk as to the fact that they will not be able to blow it up with dynamite or explode it, as there are too many residential buildings around there. This came up in the discussion of it, but very little talk of the fact that this is one of the most polluted intersections in Germany, which to me is actually a much greater long-term hazard to the residences around there. So maybe just demolish it and leave it demolished. But at the rate we build things here, that's
probably the case.
I mean, as much as I support the A100 stop campaign, just a crack, succeeded where they could not. So yeah, the dereliction of maintaining our infrastructure may be what gets the cars out of Berlin. Or maybe, wait a second, this unexpected crack.
Unexpectedly enlarged crack.
Yes. What a great way to bring down the system.
Very good.
All right, so there's my advice.
We're cracking open the case of social change.
All right.
A scandal in Charlottenburg. At the root, a CDU politician and the deputy mayor of Charlottenburg. So Detlef Wagner did some stuff. And the SPD, the left, and the FDP parliamentary groups in the Berlin's district have accused Detlev Wagner of misconduct related to a part-time job and the allocation of subsidies. They claim he unlawfully awarded 60,000 euros in district funds since 2020 to a youth project that he volunteered for and served as a managing partner of. Opposing parties are now seeking his removal from office. Wagner denies the accusations, stating that he was transparent about his involvement from the start and did not participate in funding decisions. A recall motion requires a two-thirds majority, which is currently not in sight. The district mayor has announced an examination of Wagner's secondary employment.
Yeah, I love a scandal that's just like, we did after-school arts and crafts. That's adorable.
It's a youth centre, and they also like tackle anti-Semitism in the local area. So it feels like, it feels a bit awkward going after him for that. But it's 60,000 euros of taxpayers' money that he's put in his own project. So that also feels dodgy. So I kind of understand where they're coming from. But
it's a reach.
Yeah. Yeah. If it was like a real estate project that he's invested in, like totally, I get that.
Several small protests took place across Berlin and Brandenburg as part of the Global Action Day Tesla takedown, targeting Tesla and its owner, Elon Musk. In Grünheide, around 20 demonstrators gathered outside the Tesla factory with banners calling to turn off Tesla's tap. Voicing environment.
You're not. No, I think the water tap. Right.
I don't know.
You don't like the alliteration?
It feels forced. It feels like out of all the punchy slogans you could come up with, it's like, turn off Tesla's tap. Yeah. Anyway.
Eliminate Elon. What do you want? You could pitch, get a slogan you want to, go away.
I would just go with, just like a fuck Musk. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like just a...
Yeah,
just go with
classic.
like I feel like I always like the protest slogans that kind of go with more like raw emotions than cleverness.
Right.
We had like "fuck off Google" a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was good.
That was lovely, wasn't it?
And it worked.
Fuck off Google.
It feels good to say it, and
Yeah.
Anyway, they were voicing environmental concerns, and smaller protests occurred in Berlin-Reinickendorf, where about 10 people demonstrated outside a Tesla store, as well as the Tesla showroom in the Mall of Berlin.
I didn't even know they had one there.
I
guess that's not really the point of the story. Guys, don't worry, I'm not buying a Tesla. I can't afford one.
I love that now we just basically just drew attention to where people can buy Teslas. That's the takeaway from those.
Yeah.
Did we say here where that how much his company is losing though since the first quarter? I think the figures came out. He's lost 19%.
Yeah, like a lot. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, 19% shareholder price.
That doesn't matter to.
It doesn't really matter to him,
he
but he is also crying about it. And he did say, why does everyone start hurting my feelings after saying like empathy is the scourge of America? Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and he was like, no one ever says anything about the good things I've done
anymore.
Yeah.
Actually, plenty of people do say that. If you like talk to like men in their 20s.
Yeah. I don't go to parties. I don't go to house parties anymore.
Yeah. In more Musk adjacent news, Rabea Rogge became the first German woman and Berlinerin to travel to space as part of the SpaceX Fram 2 mission from Florida. The 4-day mission will orbit polar regions, conducting 22 scientific experiments, including the first X-ray images of humans in space and studies on hormonal balance in female bodies. Rogge carries personal items honoring Berlin's history, such as a medal for aviation pioneer Otto Lilienthal and a replica of the Schöneberg Town Hall Freedom Bell, symbolizing her connection to her hometown. So I looked that up because I was like, the Schöneberg Town Hall Freedom Bell.
Yeah.
So in 1950, I should have written down who was it, but there was like someone on like the American committee in Germany did some fundraising in the US to make a replica of the Liberty Bell to then put it in the Schöneberg Town Hall.
The like Philadelphia Liberty Bell, the crack with the crack in it.
I'm assuming that one's not cracked.
This is a pretty. I mean, as a metaphor, a pretty important, I mean, because if you're going to replicate it, it's got to have the crack, but also the crack is like...
Can you tell us about this crack, seeing as
I
we're
mean,
not from
what is it with you and
Philadelphia or
crack?
the US?
it appeared unexpectedly.
Did it enlarge?
You know how cracks do. I mean, I don't really have much more like I have an American high school education, so what I know is that there's a crack in the Liberty Bell, and that was never examined further as a metaphor growing up. I think it's I don't know what caused it. It's not the bell from Back to the Future, if listeners are picturing that, but it's where freedom isn't free. I don't know what it means, but there's a Liberty Bell, and yeah.
So Schöneberg, for some more historical context, in 1963 is 1961, right? 1961 is the town hall in front of which JFK says, "Ich bin ein Berliner."
Right.
His very famous speech saying that if you're a free person, if you're living in a free country with freedom, then you are also a Berliner too. He's trying to
right.
Raise the consciousness of
the square
people.
in front of the town hall is named after John F. Kennedy.
JFK.
So was my junior high school.
Well, there you go.
Does anyone know the rest of that speech?
No, we don't need to.
Well, I guess
Are you going to recite the entire speech?
I do. I'll just say this. I have it on vinyl. So,
But I just found it, I just think it's cute that she now has a replica of the Schöneberg Liberty Bell. So she has a replica of the Liberty Bell that she now took to Florida to then take it to space.
Does it have a crack?
I think that's beautiful.
Yes, it is.
It didn't look like it have a crack on the photos I saw, but I didn't examine it too closely.
Because under space pressure, it could also unexpectedly enlarge. Does anyone
That's
know
one
anything?
of the experiments.
Does anyone know anything about Otto Lilienthal? Who she's taking some medals of Otto Lilienthal. Who's this guy?
But that wasn't a rhetorical question? Okay. I'm hitting a stinker. Cybersecurity is the top concern for businesses, according to Vanta's recent State of the Trust report. But whether you're a startup founder or an experienced security professional, Vanta is here to help. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance needs across over 35 frameworks like ISO 27001 and SOC 2. Centralized security workflows complete security questionnaires up to 5 times faster and proactively manage vendor risk. Join over 9,000 global companies like Flow Health, Synesthesia, and Alica Bank who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Learn how to simplify trust management at vanta.com/Radio Spakoff. That's VANTA.com/Radio Spakoff. And we thank them very much for their support.
Okay, so we are welcoming to the show two wonderful guests, Ester and Jolene. Welcome to Radio Spakoff. Both of you are from citizens' initiatives trying to stop any building on the Tempelhof. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
I wanted to start off this segment. So we're going to be talking about the Feld, Tempelhofer Feld, and we're going to be talking about the potential of building work that's being sort of planned and attempted by people in the city and governing the city as well. And I wanted to start off this segment by talking about our memories of the Tempelhof. So I thought it would be really nice if each of us just share an anecdote of our time on the Feld. So who wants to start? Esther, go ahead.
I mean, I have to say it's not one specific memory. It's really this kind of vibe. When you go down a Herfordstraße and you have all of these big buildings around you and you come from work or whatever, and then you start to see the sky and it all starts clearing up. And for me, the Tempelhofer Feld really is the beach of Berlin in a way, because you have the sky and this feeling of, okay, I can breathe in and breathe out and let everything else go away in a way. And then you sit down and you calm down and you then start to see all of these really, really ridiculously picturesque scenes evolve around you, like this family doing yoga and this person doing a sport that you never saw, and all of these things. We're like, okay, this looks like a really fucking horrible Amazon commercial, because all of this is so beautiful and picturesque and lovely, but it's just happening around you.
I love that.
I was just on the field today, but I was just thinking about your question, and I thought, what's my favorite memory of the field? Probably the first time I ever went there, not too long ago, I guess 7-8 years ago, when I first moved to Berlin. I think the main thing that what it stands for me is the freedom, and it's one of the truly public spaces in Berlin. And as an architect, I deeply appreciate this in the world that we live in, that really are pushing for capitalistic real estate development, and also like marginalized social qualities in a city. To have this field really stands for me why I love Berlin so much. And it's not about going there every day, or not for me, but the fact that it exists as a space is freedom for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it always struck me, like, when I found it, to be like, there's so much like only in Berlin stuff, and it's just like people doing ketamine on an U-Bahn, and it's sort of like, that's not really only in Berlin. But Tempelhof to me is truly one of those things where it's like a monument to like a lot of curious historical and political, and like also just the politics that the will of the people could maintain a space with nothing in it. I mean, it's not traditionally beautiful in the way like maybe like a Groom Central Park or something like that is. So for me, that's my point.
I just like there's just a space for so many people just doing their thing, because I feel like just walking onto a field and then there's people fucking like practicing kite surfing, like on the grass. There's regular kites. There's people doing CrossFit. There's like any kind of outdoor activity I feel like can be found at any given point on the.
Which one is yours? CrossFit?
Yeah, that's my it's not like necessarily my favorite memory, but I did have a therapist who would sometimes just go on walks with me over the Tempelhofer Feld.
Oh my God. We get cool therapists. Is it because you speak German?
Probably, yeah.
Damn it.
But I think for like, because she was like talking a lot about the effects for mental health of this like openness, and you don't see like a bunch of buildings, and it's just you and the sky and the nature.
Yeah, so actually like a really, like my memory, or like my most outstanding memory of Tempelhof, like I lived in Schillerkiez for 10 years, so Schillerkiez is right next to Tempelhof, so Tempelhof was kind of my garden in a way. And during the pandemic, when we had so little opportunity to like go out and see friends, and also, you know, just everyone went through a really hard time, a lot of people went through a really hard time during the pandemic, and yeah, for whatever reason, I was also going through an incredibly hard time as well. And I remember just when I would be at a point of like mentally feeling like I couldn't really take it anymore, I would go to the middle of the Feld and just find a spot where there just wasn't anyone else for ages and ages and ages, and just fucking scream. And I was able to see my favorite building in Berlin, which is the Fernsehturm, the TV tower, which I love so much. It's quite inexplicable. I don't really understand why, but it just makes my heart palpitate. And I see it all the time, and I just love it so much. And so I would look at the Fernsehturm and just be like, fucking hell! You know, like, and just wait for Berlin to come back, and just feel this incredible sense of like, okay, I've done that now. I can go back home and look after my 2-year-old at the time.
I like that you identify the Fernsehturm as like a niche thing.
Well, you're like, love so much.
Hey guys, I was in Paris. I saw this statue. You won't believe. It's kind of a giant point. It's called I think it's pronounced Eiffel Tower, and it's really a can't miss tourist attraction.
I'm not saying that people don't know what the Fernsehturm is. I'm saying that not many people think it's like the most beautiful building in Berlin.
That's true. Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Have you seen photos of it without the ball?
No.
You have to look it up, how it's actually constructed.
Is it gonna ruin
because
it?
The first time I saw it, I was like shocked, because you see like a chimney without the ball part, and they constructed the prototype on ground to kind of show that it will work. So there's the ball on the ground and just a stick on Earth. There is this photo. You need to look it up.
Does it kind of look naked?
God.
No, it just looks
I
like
wish this
really
wasn't
wrong.
an audio medium.
You cannot like undo once you've seen this, you cannot go back.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so. So they just stuck it on there like an olive on a
No,
toothpick?
I think in the end they reconstructed it,
Okay.
but they kind of like showed off like, look at it, 1-to-1 prototype,
Wow.
master technology of that time. I
Did it
guess
unexpectedly enlarge?
Maybe it actually unexpectedly decreased due to perspective.
Oh, right.
I guess.
Okay.
Oh yeah. It
It
does
was
get.
pretty large.
That also
on the
happens.
floor. You know.
So coming back to the Tempelhof.
Yeah, let's
Coming
get
back to the
back.
Tempelhof. Come back to the
I just
Tempelhof.
had to.
Thank you so much, guys, for participating in that love fest for Tempelhof. But yeah, it's an extraordinary place, and you both represent two organisations who are doing God's work to prevent it from being built on. So can you just give us a quick intro to both of your organisations? Let's go with you first, Esther, for 100% Tempelhof.
Sure. So 100% Tempelhofer Feld is one of the initiatives that for a really, really, really long time, for over a decade actually, has been advocating for the Tempelhofer Feld to stay a public park. Because basically, I mean, obviously the backstory is it was an airport, the airport was closed, then it was open to the public, but the government always wanted to build on it and to construct on it. And right from the beginning, I think the big mistake of the government actually was that they opened it up. Because basically before it was, I'm from Berlin, born and raised, and before it was this kind of non-place.
I feel like that should have got a clap, no?
Yes, I'm a unicorn, please.
So rare.
Clap for me. I was born in a place. No, but basically the mistake, I think you didn't really notice that it was this massive space just available. It was a non-space, really. It was this kind of thing that you would go past and you wouldn't even notice it because it was a stupid airport and you couldn't do anything there. And the mistake was that basically the government of Berlin wanted to build on it, but was opening it up for this, they thought, a limited amount of time. And then the people of Berlin kind of discovered it and they fell in love with the place. They fell in love with the sky. They fell in love with the opportunity, with everything that it had to give. And then they didn't want to give it back. So basically, it would be I think we're kind of an umbrella initiative because there's so many different things happening there. And it's really amazing to see how this place really also inspires people to get political and to see all of the connections between local stuff that is going on and stuff that is going on in the city and stuff that is going on in the world. But I think the thing that 100% Tempelhofer Feld is most famous for is that it's also the initiative that did the referendum to officially save the Feld 2014. So you kind of, it was this kind of crazy thing of citizens getting together, realizing that actually advocacy with this government will not lead anywhere, that they are so convinced that there needs to be construction on the Feld and that they're so in love with the money and their own ridiculous plans that they will not listen to anything that the citizens say, that basically people got together and wrote this law to protect the Feld. And then they went through this whole process of doing a referendum, which is this super, super long, tedious process of 3 years in different phases and collecting signatures in order to make the whole city of Berlin vote on it and to give the decision back to the people of Berlin. There's one tiny exception, which is really horrible and super racist, that basically you have to be a citizen of Germany in order to vote for it. So I think a lot of your audience might actually, for example, support this, but was not able to actually vote on it, which is problematic in itself. But basically 2014, we saved the Feld by getting this law voted in, which was written by the citizens for the citizens, and the citizens of Berlin then made the decision to have the Tempelhofer Feld as a public park and to keep it as it is. Unfortunately, we still exist as an initiative because the government never really, they kind of had to accept the law, but they always said that they would go back to it. So it's 10 years later and we're still talking about the Feld. So that's why we still exist.
Yeah, thank you, Esther. I think a lot of what Architects for Tempelhofer Feld does, it's all because of 100% Tempelhofer Feld. We don't exist without you either. And we see ourselves also as a counterpart coming from the architectural background. We are a group comprised of architects, landscape architects, and urban planners. And somehow how we came together is exactly the latest news of what's happening on the field, which is an idea competition, an international idea competition that is calling all practitioners around the world, quote unquote. There are certain countries that are not allowed in this open international competition, but we came together at the point where this would happen, and our mission became very quickly to create a counter narrative to this competition that is happening, because we are on the side of 100% Tempelhofer Feld, that nobody wants this competition actually, and we wanted to stand up to also raise our voice to say, you asked us for ideas and we are telling you, do not build. And just as simple as that, it became a counter narrative. And if you see the idea competition as a, let's say, negatively seen project, and what we want to do is the opposite, to create a positive project from not building. And this is one of the biggest claims and also the strongest ones, because it's kind of funny that architects are telling people not to build, right? It's like there must be something wrong.
Yeah, and it reminds me of like some actually really positive and exciting international architecture competitions that have occurred in Berlin, like the 1950s when we had this Interbau competition in the Hansaviertel. And some of the most famous brutalist architects in the world created these really wildly interesting brutalist buildings. I mean, and now they're twisting that and turning it into something again that like sort of a bit ahistorical in a way. Like, yeah, let's bring back that architectural competition to Berlin, but on a place that is loved by Berliners, and no one wants to build there.
I mean, in some way, I don't see the same as Interbau or any other international Baustellung, but this competition is not the first time. Right. That's the thing. Like, this is not the first time they also tried to threaten the field. And they tried it already before, and this referendum or the Volksentscheid that came into place protected it from that. And the fact that it is a law, and of course laws are meant to be amendable because we also live in a, let's say, fluid society. And because of that, this is coming back again, and we just needed to voice ourselves yet again. It's kind of like a weird loop, and many people ask, but what can we do? Right. And I think the biggest thing that also 100% Tempelhofer Feld is advocating for is to making it a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It should be one, but it's also like not possible because only the government can nominate one. And if the government's not for it, I don't know exactly what we can do.
Is there... We interviewed on an episode last summer, Martin Arts. He's a urban planner, and he had like what at the time I thought like, man, don't say this out loud. This is crazy. Like he kind of suggested do something with it, and was not saying build condominiums or bring in media buildings or Amazon towers, but that by not utilizing it all, even to build a playground or anything, that you leave it open to this constant threat of them somehow getting built on. Is there a way to maintain what we love about it while still utilizing it in some way, not being just empty?
I mean, there are lots of different approaches to that. The one is that actually part of the law that was voted in was that there should be this kind of participation process to see how the Tempelhofer Feld can be developed. So it's not about constructing, it's not about changing the character of the Feld, but things like playgrounds, things like trees in certain areas, things like urban gardening projects. I mean, I think it's because it's such a big space, you sometimes overlook how many projects and citizen-led projects are actually happening on the field. I mean, you have art projects. You have this amphitheater on the Tempelhofer side, which is an amazing art program over the summer. You have urban gardening. You do have the sheep who are living on the field. Like you have
and the skylarks.
Yeah, exactly. And the
they
skylarks.
get to do their thing.
They get to do their thing, of course. So you have so many things going on, and there was this really long participation process to actually see, okay, where, for example, would be infrastructure needed for sports things, where would be, things needed for playgrounds, like all of these things, which were actually developed by citizens. So there is this whole participation plan on what to do with that, which, just isn't what the government is looking for, because they're not looking for that. They're not looking for playgrounds. They're not looking for more trees and banks and toilets. That's not what they want. And then the other thing which is important to notice is that the building of the airport is legally a completely different entity, and there's still no real plan for that. So I think for us it's also a little bit this kind of thing of like, we love this place. We have a vision of what could be developed and how it could be this open space where you have space for projects and things and nature and all of these things. And you keep coming back with this construction plan, but you're not doing anything with the actual building of the airport. It's crazy.
Right.
So what do you say to people who will say, okay, we're facing a housing crisis in Berlin, and one of the major issues with housing crisis is obviously supply. But, Tempelhof is, 5 kilometers squared. It's a huge space. We can build so much housing. I'm not even going to bother say it, but affordable. So we can build so much housing in Tempelhof. So let's just let rip because we have a housing crisis and that's what we need right now. We don't need more open spaces.
I think the problem behind it obviously is super, super real. And we have to acknowledge that. But I think if you have a problem like housing, when people cannot afford to live, what you need to do is to look at the facts and to look at the data. And it's surprising that, or at least for me, it's not surprising anymore, because you always start with this kind of thing of like, okay, I'm sure the government wants what's best for us. Maybe we don't have the same opinion, but sure. But then you look at the facts and you look at studies and research commissioned by the government, and it actually tells you that it's not needed to build on the Tempelhofer Feld. That, there is STEP 2040, which is this really long, again, commissioned by the government study on, how housing will develop, what is already kind of approved of housing that needs to be constructed, like all of these very detailed things where people experts took the time to actually look at the situation. And the result is, it's absolutely not needed to build on the field. And then there was another study commissioned, which basically looked at the value of the Tempelhofer Feld. Again, for mental health reasons, climate adaptation, the fact that basically the Feld cools down all of the areas around it, where the result of that research was, no, the Tempelhofer Feld is super important for the whole well-being of the city. So I think if you look at all of these things combined to say that, okay, if you ask the expert, the Tempelhofer Feld is not needed to solve the housing crisis. There are actually experts who say that it will drive gentrification and it will drive rents up if there is construction on the Tempelhofer Feld. And then you see all of the other benefits, or not benefits, the kind of thing of like, in times of climate change, we need to change our perspective to say, can we really afford to lose any green space in the city? And what will be the costs if we actually construct on that? I think if you look at all of the data and research combined, you actually see that it's not solving the problem that people cannot afford rent. And it's actually making all of our situation worse to have construction on the Feld. And I think that's really one of the things that makes me recommit to this year after year, that really the data speaks for itself.
So there's a reason that we had you on now, which is that you guys are doing some actions on the Feld at the moment. And, well, basically I bumped into one of you at the on the Feld, not one of you personally, but another person who was...
one of you people.
100% Berlin, 100% Tempelhofer Felders. And invited you guys on. So that's kind of how that happened. But yeah, so what has the political situation got to do with it at the moment? I mean, you've got mentions at the federal level now. So Merz, I think, uttered the words Tempelhofer Feld in a public capacity recently. So what's the current political situation and why are you guys kind of feeling a bit more stressed about the Feld as usual?
Maybe I won't comment exactly about this political debate because I don't feel like I have enough expertise on this level. Maybe Esther can comment on this in a after this. I just wanted to kind of speak about one topic, let's say, that connects what you now say about this political issue and a bit about the fact before that we have a housing crisis. Let's say these two topics that, firstly, I agree is a political issue. It's not an architectural issue. So this is the first thing. And the other thing is that we were just speaking before this podcast that it's not a housing crisis. It is affordable housing crisis. And when you look at the data, and if we want to be scientific about it, I feel like the actions of the government is not backing up what they're saying. If there is a housing crisis, why are you demolishing buildings? Why are you demolishing houses that could be housing people today? Yes, it needs renovation. But if you compare the time of renovating a building versus constructing a completely new building in the climate crisis that we're in the real estate market that we're in, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And talking about this step, if you look at it, it's similar to like addressing the climate crisis. You're discounting it. You're pushing it into the future. Before they said we need 194,000 apartments in Berlin until 2030. And then a couple of years later, they say we need 222,000 flats until 2040. And what's next? It feels like when you look at this kind of news or this kind of report from your own industry, that it is becoming very clear that the problem is on a political level. What do you want to do with this? And this kind of stems back to the sellout of the land of Berlin in the 90s. And now if you are a politician, if you are a real estate developer, and you look at Berlin as a place to grow your business, of course you look at the field. It is one of the largest remaining assets of the city. And we are claiming that the Feld is not an asset. It is not something that you can put a price on. And this is like very fundamental, but also quite hardly discussed in the wider public because it's so niche bubble architecture world. Even that is like niche of the architecture world. Whatever we're doing is also being asked back like, but you are architects. Why are you against building? Why are you against capitalism? I'm just like, sorry, what?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically nobody expected us to win the referendum. So I think from day one, the SPD, which at that time was the governing party of Berlin, they already were like, okay, what do we do now? Crisis mode, and when can we start to think about this again? And they honestly, they brought it up within month. Within month, it was this thing of like, oh yeah, but for now, but maybe we discuss it later, right? Like maybe the situation will change. And then they kept coming back, whenever there was some kind of moment to bring it up again, they would always have this kind of thing of like, maybe now we should build on the field. And it's the same with the CDU. I mean, the CDU always wanted to build on the Feld. They're very, very clear interested in it. So for over 10 years, there was always the next interview, the new convention where the Feld was still kind of on the table. So they never gave up their dream of building on the Feld. And I think that's kind of important to notice because it's not a new thing and the situation really hasn't changed. Last year, for the second time, they amended the law. So they took a part of the Feld and basically will do construction on it. They are, what makes me extremely angry about it, they are using it under the pretense of refugee rights, which is horrible because it's a horrible situation for any human being to be, to be living under. But they really, really, really basically took 1/4 of the construction felds that they wanted to use from 2014 and changed the law without any participation, without any just because they can, because they are in power. And that's what happened last April. I think the only reason why they're not changing the law right now is because people love the Feld so much. Because this law is only protected because we protect it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. If there's, So, I mean, we over the years we've talked to people who want to do interesting things on it. The food forest was a really fun idea, and I've seen things built there that I love that are citizen driven, or sometimes they're just like an electric F1 race or whatever. I don't know, but people seem to like it. Yet it comes back to so often the will of the people is this absolutism, and like that it's like no library, no housing for refugees, no like low income housing, no. We just say no to anything that's suggested, and that seems to be like that absolutism is what makes it easy politically to kind of get people on board, get the public on board. Is that it's a simple thing, just no. But if we start introducing if we say, well, there is some good things we can do, whether it is a food force or whatever, do we start to weaken that absolutism even from a side of like maintaining what we purport to like about it? Does that make sense? Like, you don't want these, when the government makes these small intrusions, we're like, no. But when people do it, or the people, or whatever that means, we seem to be more accepting of some of these things. So how do we know where absolutism is no longer useful?
I mean, our approach as this kind of small, obscure citizen initiative with lots of people with very different approaches and backgrounds is usually that we start by talking to the experts. So, for example, when the very first time the refugee housing was introduced and refugees were placed, for example, in the building of Tempelhofer Feld, we went and talked to the Refugee Council of Berlin. And we really got their input, and we really, kind of, our expertise is a Feld. We have a very clear opinion on that. But there are so many other things, again, also with the architects. I mean, that's why we love working with you guys together, because we're not architects. We don't know anything about that. Some people in our initiatives know, but the general thing of like valuing expert, input and opinions, and then taking that and having a look of what it's doing to the Feld. And I think what I would say regarding the absolutism is that the problem is that it's so very obvious that what the government wants is to have construction on the Feld, and they're not shy about saying that. So it's not this kind of thing of like we're talking about this specific project, but the project always stands for something bigger. It's a little bit the kind of, that's the reason why Friedrich fucking Merz is talking about the Tempelhof. What is he like? He doesn't have anything to do with it. Why does he bring it up? Because it has become this massive symbol of citizens saying, well, we don't want this big project that you want for us, and we are using our political power to stop it. And I think that's also what threw them off so much, that suddenly there was this fear of like, oh, but suddenly we can't do anything anymore. Suddenly the citizens want to be involved with this. Suddenly they want to have this participation process. And interestingly enough, I think the political vibe right now is that to a certain degree you need to have citizens involved. Every politician is going to tell you, well, of course participation, of course we want that. At least, I mean, who knows where we're going with Friedrich Merz, to be honest, but
yeah, I mean, let's not say every politician.
but in the past 10 years it was like that, at least. And what we've seen is that was sometimes used as a tool to get people in this participation process where they had no decision-making power, where it was basically, I would say, was an abuse of democratic structures, which would really frustrate people and piss people off, because on the one hand, they were sort of asked to participate, to really get into a subject. And the last time that happened actually regarding Tempelhofer Feld was a year ago, where a number of citizens, I think a couple of hundreds, were chosen by random.
Oh, right, yes.
In this kind of official process to, again, ask this question of what should be the future of the Tempelhofer Feld. And the question behind it, again, this was commissioned by the government, was to say maybe the situation has changed. Maybe the citizens of Berlin are not in favor of keeping the Feld as it is. Maybe they do want construction now. And they pulled this group of random people. They got them together for 2 weekends, had a lot of input on them, on all of the different sides. And then all of the citizens, again, chosen completely randomly, were supposed to enter these kind of proposals on what to do with it. And every single one of them wanted to uphold the Tempelhofer Feld law and didn't want to construct on it. And again, before they were saying, oh, for the architecture competition that Jolene was talking about, they were saying, okay, we start with this participation process for the citizens, and the result of that is then given to the architects.
And it was like a really cool website with like little pictures of the people's faces floating around. Like the design of that all, it was like very enticing.
They spent some good money.
Yeah, there was like a lot of money. I feel like maybe that's the thing. Like, let them build fancy websites, and like then they won't. They'll just like, oh, we just need to throw some money around to some people, and they won't. Yeah. I mean, from Jolene, from your perspective and your group's perspective, it's like, okay, if you had to build something, do you have an answer for that?
I mean, this is a funny question because that's what they asked in the Dialogwerkstatt. It's kind of like a framed democracy, let's put it that way, with quotes in it. It's like, would you like to build on the field? No. What if we really had to build on the field? No. But if, let's say, we did build on the field, what would you like? It's like trick questions.
Yeah.
If a gangster has your daughter at gunpoint and you need to build on the field, what is it that you're doing?
Yeah, it's just a trick question.
It's like Liam Neeson as an architect. He's got to do a public works.
No, and really, I mean, to come back to that, when the result was that all of the groups didn't want to build on the field, they were suddenly backtracking and saying, well, we just wanted to hear their opinion. We're still going to go ahead with the architecture competition.
Because they were going to love it to work for free and work for this idea competition that's not going to be built.
I think they pulled out like the one pull quote was like more stuff for youth and kids there. I think that was like maybe one little thing where they found some like support within the communities right around there. But again, that's sort of like not a condominium.
I don't know, but I guess to your question is that I'm on the side of 100% Tempelhofer Feld. That I think one of your biggest claims is also not either or, but both and the fact that Flughafen Tempelhof, that has around 300,000 square meters, is laying empty. And finally, under Denkmalschutz, which means it's now in a golden cage. It's going to be protected forever, but what exactly to do with it, we do not know. Well, they do know that it's going to be a cultural center, but we've seen what happened to the Berlin Palace. So, I mean, I was just looking up also the numbers there. It doesn't look good. But let's say from the architectural point, one of our first assemblies where Esther was also giving a presentation, we had over 250 groups of participants worldwide from architectural backgrounds joining this. And one of them said that the issue with this competition itself is that a lot of Berlin architects are voting a no confidence in the government in upholding what they say. They say it's a housing crisis, they want to build houses and they want to give it to people. And when you look at the real numbers and the real regulations, nothing is there to protect it. I think there are many ifs. Maybe, let's say, if we stick to the top 10, we could start by saying, if it's 100% social housing, if you would calculate and show us that you can do it, if you have tried every other means of this 249,000 that you have mapped up yourself, if you have added one floor across all of the existing buildings in Berlin, and still it is not enough, we can maybe discuss this field, but until then, there are so many things you can do that immediately solves a problem. It is a policy problem. It is not a stock problem. Look at the Amazon Tower. I'll be for it if there is like 100 flats in there. This is a different topic, but right now, what is it for?
Just for us to use as a symbol of everything we don't like. I mean,
we hate it.
There's a lot of utility to as an emotional thing for us.
Okay, so if people want to get in touch with you guys or want to support you guys or want to like be part of your actions, do you have anything special coming up? And where can people find you?
You go first.
Yeah,
Jolene?
I think we're doing from the Architects for Tempelhofer Feld group. We are doing 2 main actions for the rest of the competition timeline, which is now April until September 2025. And one thing that we're doing is to raise money to create a publication together with Arts of the Working Class, which is a street art magazine, which are 100% profit goes to street vendors. And we want to raise the issue of, let's say, our expert, or not say just our studies, our researches, everything that we have, to put it on a piece of paper to also then spread over 60 to 80,000 copies over Berlin. And on the other hand, I guess this is, let's say, on the intellectual digital level as well. And on the other hand, we would like to be present on the field together with 100% Tempelhofer Feld and every other activist group or initiatives that are there. It's going to be summer soon. There's like Action Month every weekend. And maybe the biggest date to look forward to is the anniversary of the THF Gesetz, which is 25th of May, 2025. I think no matter what events are being, let's say, planned or not planned, I would welcome everybody to just use the field. It will be a really cool day to be there.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is please follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, sign up for the newsletter, because in so many ways we're always reacting to what the government is doing. And please stay informed, because the Feld is in danger. It's crazy to me how I work in a very international field, and how many people come to me and talk about the Feld, and then I say, well, yes, we're still fighting for it, and they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's in danger? So very often people are not aware that really the only thing that stands between the Feld and this massive, massive construction work that will go on forever and will be horrible, because that's how construction work in Berlin goes, is literally the people. Without people standing up for the Feld wouldn't be there anymore. So please stay informed, stay educated. There's so much great material out there that really also educates you on, again, the housing crisis, what's going on in Berlin in general, what's all of these issues. There are so many cool civil societies and initiatives in Berlin working on all of these different subjects that really shape and make the city the way it is. And we have a CDU mayor at the moment. We're looking ahead in very uncertain times in Germany in general. Stay educated, follow the right actors, support us. When we ask you to come to a protest because it's important, please show up and bring 3 of your friends who love the Feld. Because honestly, it's not a granted given thing that the Feld will exist. Awesome. And the fact that it exists is because people did show up. So thank you so much for all of your support. And please support us in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. One quick headline I want to address as well is I started to see rumors and reports of fentanyl making its way into drugs in Berlin. It was headlines in some of the tabloids that I enjoy reading, but also in a random Reddit thread for people who go to Berghain. We covered this, about 2 years ago, when there was a false positive of a test. And at the time we had talked to our friends at No Drugs, an app for tracking these things. So I did reach out again to them. And I think what's important to know is this positive fentanyl test came back with some heroin, not in like typical party drugs, and it was at it is certainly coming. Basically what he said, and this is via email: if someone would confuse this sample with heroin and take an average dose, it would be lethal. Besides that, there have been quite a few outliers tested with an extremely high content of heroin compared to the average concentration in Berlin, which could be lethal as well if someone has a low tolerance to heroin. In general, people who consume heroin should be extra cautious and use drug checking by all means. Never consume alone. Have someone with them who can administer a naloxone nasal spray and other first aid. And in particular, try and use a drug consumption room. So while it is not in the party drugs also have tons and tons of other things in them. I just perused the website today. Whether it's dirt or just unknown substances, none of it's really that safe. But you can use drug checking. Fentanyl test strips will have a lot of false positives, but that is fine. I also just wanted to see how much naloxone was, because in response to this story about fentanyl coming into Berlin for the first time, the police point out that they don't really have very much of those. Like in the U.S. now, it's pretty much standard to have this naloxone. The point is, it's a life-saving drug that can reverse the effects of opiates, and you can buy it in the U.S. for about $50 or maybe 2 for $50 on Amazon. It's $5 a pop here in Germany. You do need a prescription for it still, but you can also just get that prescription online the same way you would get your weed prescription. So if it's something that if you're out in scenes where people are doing drugs and fentanyl can become an issue, it's time to start, having some nasal sprays around as part of your first aid kits. And it's your GP can prescribe it for you. So maybe even you might even be free. I don't know. But for me as an American, $5 for any medication is amazing, whether or not it saves your life or a friend's. So basically, don't freak out. But, in a couple of years, you probably will have to.
Radio spät Kauf. Berlin News in English.
Our next guest is a local show promoter and graphic designer who recently co-founded the Cake Walk Music Festival. Please, a warm welcome to Sebastian Thauer.
Thank you for having me. I sing in a band, and this makes me more frightened than I've ever been on stage. Because I never say anything. I mean,
would you prefer to do the interview
screaming? Yeah,
screaming. We
yeah,
can.
So,
I might.
Can
I might
you
just
beatbox and then I can sing.
I'll turn up the compression a little bit. But
no reverb, anything.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you overcoming your fears to chat with us.
Thank you.
In front of this audience, who I have to say is incredibly intimidating.
There's hundreds of people. Oh God.
I mean, for listeners at home, they all have the cute glasses that are kind of round, but have the brown and the kind of animal-y patterns, and then the other ones who don't have that have cute hats like mine.
Yeah.
Just introduce us to the idea of what Cake Walk Festival is, so our audience can understand.
I'm the co-founder out of three co-founders of a, let's say, DIY hardcore underground punk festival named Cake Walk, and that's going to take place on June 8th at Malzfabrik in Berlin near Südkreuz. And it's a one-day festival. We got about 12 bands playing, and yeah.
So why? So this is the first year. Why did you and your co-founders decide to start a hardcore festival?
Because we think that there's a good one missing in Berlin. I mean, hardcore punk in Berlin is it's either very dusty or, I don't know how many people who are listening to this are really familiar with the topic of underground hardcore punk in Berlin.
Sure. There you go. I mean, we're all going to at least pretend we do. All right, so wait. So you said it's all very dusty or...
It's either dusty or very concerned with money.
Okay. So maybe what at the risk of feeling very old, what is dusty hardcore?
It's kind of like people above the age of 50 who are mainly concerned with bands that had their peak in the 80s and are still around and don't bring anything new to the scene.
Okay.
And we're kind of...
So what have these young kids got on H2O?
Oh God, dude, where should I start?
Okay. No. It's very exciting to me because I feel like when I first moved here, this isn't a city that's known in the time I've lived here for punk and hardcore. It has a history of that, and it seems like now I'm seeing more and more places where there's bands with drums and guitars and not just DJs spinning. How thriving is the hardcore scene in Berlin right now?
It has definitely gotten bigger with commercial success of bands like, I want to say, Turnstile or Knocked Loose, who even appear on TV shows. That kind of reflects onto the youth. It makes rock music a little bit more attractive, I want to say, at this point. How much this really reflects onto the whole grassroots thing that's behind it. Difficult to say, but with Cake Walk Fest, for instance, we kind of want to do our part to make the whole thing a little bit more bigger and more attractive and more tactical for people. So you don't have to, maybe it's really hard to get into the, let's say, good stuff. And it's a nice alternative to I don't know, looking for shows in basements.
Right.
And it's a nice place of exposure for that music.
So it's more accessible than...
Yeah, definitely.
You may not have to know a guy or a lady.
How
diverse is the sort of scene or the lineup of the festival?
Good question. I mean, we are trying to be diverse. We have definitely some bands that include Flinter people, but as usual in the scene, which is very male dominated, I have to say, I mean, we're trying to have bands that include women or anybody who's not cis male white. Sometimes it's hard to find bands like that who are willing to play, especially like a fest that's not well known at all. But we are trying to include people like that.
Right. Is there a risk when you're focused on on being DIY and rejecting like popular bands or dusty ones? Like, where do you? Is there?
Just you were claiming to be under, down with the kids at the beginning of
Hey,
this
he said
episode.
over 50.
Yeah.
I
didn't accuse
no
you
offense
of
to the
that,
old
but-
heads,
Yeah. No, but is there a risk of like you want to make a successful festival but not too successful? Is like maintaining that DIY philosophy like is it difficult to do both of those things at
I
once?
mean, everybody likes money, and everybody has to like at least not lose money on being in a band.
Right.
But there's a very fine line of selling out, or let's be very bland here, staying to your values of sorts.
Right.
And we are trying to find the middle ground there. Our first installment so far doesn't rely on any sponsors, and we try to keep it that way. But we will see where, like, if we get bigger, we will see where the whole thing leads. But we try to at least find sponsors in that case that are not horrible. I mean, I can think of a hardcore fest in Cologne that's kind of big,
Right.
and they are mainly sponsored by Monster.
That's
Well, I think it's Coca-Cola owned.
Monster, the energy drink. Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean,
Each to their own, I guess.
I suppose so, but it's also I'm kind of confused by the idea of like what even it means to not sell out in 2025. Like I feel like that in the 90s it was very clear. It's like you just don't go to MTV. Now it's sort of like, do you interact with social media differently if you're going to be DIY or not sell out? Are there lines in the sand anywhere?
I mean, there's hardcore bands like I think of that Australian band Speed, who have Nike commercials going right now. I would say, I mean, that's really the exception, and
Right.
it's also music that's not so easy to listen to
Right.
for the common person. Let's say
Right.
that.
But if avenues to make money are closing to musicians like through the lack of album sales or for ticketing being more difficult, or I mean, like where does the finances of that change of what it means to sell out or not while still eating?
It would be, I mean, for us, it would be ideal to sell out the fest.
Okay, to sell out without selling out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Difficult question.
Yeah. Then let me pivot to this. Why is it called Cakewalk?
Because the name was appealing. And everybody likes. I mean, it has like
Cake and walking.
cake and walking, and it's like this feeling of ease, and it's like sounds like a good time, probably, which it's supposed to be. So we decided on that one. Like our first idea was, or like for the longest time, we thought about calling ourselves Goonfest, and now
Goon.
gooning is like what I heard among Zoomers, a different meaning.
Okay. Guys, go ahead and Google that one. What
maybe
is
don't.
gooning or don't? But
Dan
it's-
will later.
No, I know about that. I'm under 50.
I think it has something to do with unexpectedly enlarging.
Yeah.
I think it does, or expectedly enlarging.
Well, at any rate.
Intentionally.
So we think Cakewalk is like better.
Right. In terms of the podcast growth or the scene's growth, is there things that people can do who like want to engage or become how do you participate? Like, again, if it is basement shows or whatever, how do people kind of get involved?
Either like joining collectives, maybe start a band. Starting bands is like the ideal situation if you're in Berlin, because we lack good bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, yes. And otherwise, do a zine, book shows, try to get to know people who work at venues. I mean, get organized in anything radically left,
Okay.
and then start from there, I guess.
That's a wonderful list.
Someone tried to start an applause
Wow.
break there, but it's so very 90s too. I'm feeling like there's
old
something
school.
alive now. Do you think that maybe there's something about the current political climate that has people like grasping back for music that reflects their anger or their desperation or their frustration? Like I know I'm putting on, I don't know, Propaganda put out an album for the first time in like 8 years, and I was like, yeah, that's what I needed.
Or they're in for the money, who knows?
Well, yeah,
But yeah,
sure.
generally, like not.
But
not
do you
to
think
talk about
hardcore
Andy,
and punk makes sense right now for a resurgence?
It absolutely makes sense, but I'm not sure if it's that appealing. I mean, all kinds of other music genres are more popular, but if you're looking for integrity and something that you can really take part in, punk is like great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that your step one is start your own band. I mean, that's the
definitely.
least elitist thing I've ever heard from a music
Please.
producer, or maybe as a promoter, you're just you got
please,
a
no
funnel
more.
here.
I just the other day I saw this meme. We have enough promoters. We need drummers.
Okay.
Or anything like that. Anybody with an instrument. If you
Wait.
listen to then pick up the an instrument.
Okay, we need more drummers. I mean, yeah, I'll start a band, but I'm not drumming. I mean, that's all right. We've got one drummer right there.
I also can't play shit. I only sing. So, but
Okay. So where do we go to learn more about the festival and when band announcements and ticket sales and all of that?
just look for, I guess, Cakewalk Fest Berlin on Instagram.
Great.
There will be a website, and start from there.
Yep.
We will start selling tickets, I think, next weekend. We're waiting for one last confirmation of a headliner, and then off we go.
Yes.
Ooh, can we make any breaking news by saying which one it will be? But they're not
No. no, I can't do that. Sorry.
We can. We will revisit that. All the links will be in the notes, and we'll also update the show notes when tickets become available. So if you're listening to this episode in the future or listening to it in the present, but would like to check back in again, we'll make sure you get the links to the tickets, to the Insta, and everything else. And right now, we're also the number one press source for all news on your DIY hardcore. Turn to Radio Bake Off for
I'm here.
DIY hardcore festivals coming up in Berlin. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks so much for putting together this festival,
Thank you.
I think it's wonderful.
Thanks.
Spät, Kauf.
I did recently see there was a study put out by I think Accor Hotels that Berlin is the best city for live music anywhere.
Anywhere?
And, yes. Now, I heard they had an agenda, but they measured like number of searches for live music and then the ratings of the venues in the city. And I think there was one more metric, like number of shows or something like that. But Berlin was like ahead of like London, Manchester, all these different cities.
New Orleans.
Berlin. Of
Austin.
course, we are. And this was on some reputable website like famezone.com or something, or Fun Muse Fam. The point is, this is a great place for live music, and according to that and me, and I'm looking forward to Cakewalk. We're at the end of the show.
Yep.
Finally. Antonia, anything you want to plug?
I'm on stage at the Comedy Cafe kind of all the time. Every third Wednesday, we're doing an improvised stand-up show. That's always a lot of fun. And every third Saturday of the month, it's that time of the month, which is an all-female and non-binary comedy variety show sort of thing.
She's underselling that. It's that time of the month is like one of the best live shows in town. If you haven't been to it yet, you're messing up your life. And it has cool like ITTOTM. It's like it's a whole fun thing you get to participate in. I highly recommend that show.
Thank
Izzy?
you.
So I've got a tour next week. So on the 12th of April, I'm collaborating with Berliner Magazine and putting on a tour of the Gleisdreieck. So if you kind of enjoyed the story that we told you earlier about Tempelhof, then Gleisdreieck is also very dramatic when it comes to citizens' initiatives, abandoned land, people trying to protect it from motorways and building projects and all sorts, and eventually turns into a much loved public park that is the most visited park in the whole of Berlin, in fact. So yeah, I'm doing a tour of that. So if you want to come, that is on the 12th of April. And it's a 3-hour tour, and I'm pretty sure it starts at 10:30. I'm not completely 100% sure.
That's all right. The internet has answers to that. I have nothing in particular to plug other than the usual things I plug. I am starting a band as of right now, and I think we're going to be called Hot Revenge. Does that right? Like, I feel like that's a good band name. You heard it here first, and I want to thank Another Country Bookstore, where we are right now. It's been a long time. It's been a fixture of Kreuzberg, for a long time. A little English language bookstore that thrives with all sorts of community events. Thank you to everyone who supports the show by their donations and subscriptions to our Steady. Really deeply appreciated. Thank you to my co-hosts, Izzy and Antonio, and to all of our guests. And a round of applause for you, the audience, for coming out tonight. This is the end of the episode.
Spät, Kauf. Berlin News in English.